That's a good question. I'm giving up a lot of the secret sauce. I'd say the first 6 months, you're just nervous the whole time.
But you're almost living like double lives where when you're in the hospital, you don't want to talk about that. But when you're at the paintball field, you don't want to talk about the hospital.
Yeah, the patients you see and you actually treat, you never forget them.
Photographer of the year, let's hear it for Dan Shelley, Shellda Photos.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Shellda Podcast, where I'm joined by the newest hot person on the pro scene, the newest guy to Paintball Fit, and a guy that's got a really cool story that we're going to dive into today. But Jake Sebaugh, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, it's been, I think you and I have been going on 3 or 4 weeks of like trying to lock down a date with you. And I just don't know if people realize like the behind the scenes of, podcasting, right? Like you're always working on your next guest and whatnot so you can stay consistent. But I say that because what you do outside of the paintball field, I don't think a lot of people know about. And that's really where I want to start this episode. And literally, I think it's 5 o'clock on a Tuesday, and an hour ago, you just got out of doing like, it sounded like an all-day licensing exam for your profession.
Yeah, practice licensing exam. Yeah.
Holy cow! So, like, talk about that. Tell me what you do.
Yeah. So currently, I'm a second-year internal medicine resident physician here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Which, if you don't know what a resident is, or it's basically you're fulfilling your training as a doctor.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is it, I've always been a big fan of medical shows, obviously like The Resident, The Pit, Grey's Anatomy and all that. Is that when I hear the term resident, I always think of one of those people, like one of those doctors. Is it something similar to that where you're shadowing and jumping from different cases like in the ER?
Yeah, very similar, but not as much drama.
That's kind of what I figured too.
Yeah.
What have you learned about being in that program? Because I think, I talk to a lot of people that have all types of jobs, right? Like blue collar to, my real job, I'm a project manager by day, but we always have this like running joke of when things get stressful, we're always like, well, we're not saving lives. It's not that bad, but like you are literally responsible for that. So like talk me through that mindset.
Yeah. You go through a lot of training, right? So you have 4 years of undergrad, and then you have 4 years of medical school, and then you start residency, which, the 4 years of medical school, you're learning all the kind of basic knowledge, and then you're starting to apply it. So once you kind of get into residency and you're, fulfilling your duty as a doctor, you kind of know, what you should be doing, but then you always have backup from your attending or your senior residents who can kind of help guide you and you just keep learning the whole time. That's the whole purpose of residency, is to keep building on your medical knowledge and applying it to the real world. Because, in the real world, not everything's like a book. There's everybody's different. Every anatomy is different. So, you have to learn kind of on the fly sometimes with each patient. And sometimes it doesn't go, like how the textbooks follow, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. It almost sounds like the textbooks are like a baseline, and then you're taking real world practices and almost like taking nuggets of each patient of like, oh, I've learned this here and I can apply that potentially elsewhere. So you're always like storing that data is what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's actually funny because, the patients you see and you actually treat, you never forget them. So like if you have a case of, let's just say, pancreatitis, and you treated that patient, it's like every case of pancreatitis you see in the future, you can kind of always cut back to that patient, that first one you saw. And it's almost like a flashcard in a way.
Wow. I'm sure it's a wild experience for you to like go through things that you've seen, then also walk into a room and like, holy shit, I haven't actually seen this one yet. All right. Before we go any deeper in this podcast with Jake Sebaugh, which I can promise you it is an incredible conversation as we dive into what he does in the hospital and how he translates that to the field and vice versa. I do want to give a huge shout out to some show sponsors that have been with me for such a long time now. And the guys over at Hormesis now, Alex, Oliver, Miko, and the rest of the team, they're literally like family. Every time I go to grab one of my Hormesis shirts from my closet, it literally feels like I'm wearing something that a family member gave me. So I can't thank Hormesis enough for the support. Hormesis and I have a new Shellda headband that's coming out soon that this colorway is absolutely unreal. I haven't seen it on any other Hormesis headband yet, so stay tuned for when that's going to drop. And then that brings me to my next two show sponsors that they just go hand in hand together. Having Jake on the show playing for Paintball Fit just makes total sense. Having a partnership with BFP Gear, working with Junior and Gina Brown has been absolutely amazing. And now that they're sponsoring Paintball Fit, one of the best teams in the whole entire world, it's just a perfect match. So if you need any paintball gear, head over to bfpgear.com because you're literally working with people who love the sport. They live, eat, sleep, and breathe paintball. And your order is probably going to be shipped out the same day as well. They are so fast over there. Speaking of bfpgear.com, I actually want to talk about my next show sponsor, and that's ProDNA. ProDNA jumped on board a few months ago, and holy cow, they have been absolutely crushing it. One of the products that ProDNA dropped in the past few months are the ProDNA turf cleats. My goodness, one, these things are absolutely incredible looking, and two, they are insanely comfortable. All the pros have been picking them up and getting their orders, and they have been absolutely raving about these. So if you want a pair of these, head over to bfpgear.com while supplies last, because as you can see, they are running out of sizes insanely fast. That's how popular these ProDNA cleats are. All right, let's head back to the episode, and I can promise you it's a good one.
Yeah, those are the scary ones, but it's rare. You know, medicine's common. So they teach us how to treat the zebras, is what they call it in medicine. The zebras don't happen all the time. You know, so we treat the common things, and then when the zebras do pop up, that's when we're pulling up our textbooks, like in our phones. Doctors do it. It's okay. You know, we don't know everything, so
it's technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. You said you've been in the residency for 2 years now.
Yeah, so I'm in my second year, so it's 3 years long. So I'm like 2.5 months into my second year, so still pretty fresh.
Have you done any reflecting back to like the first few days versus where you are now? Like, was it just a complete blur?
So yeah, I'd say the first 6 months, you're just nervous the whole time. Yeah. Because you don't know what's going to happen. You know, every day is different. But you start to gain that confidence, and you start to know, like, this is how I treat this. I know how to treat this. I don't have to go back and look. I don't have to ask for help. And so my confidence in medicine is just like built like significantly from day one. That's the biggest change I've seen.
And have you always been that type of person where even like outside of the hospital, have you always been like an active learner where you're always seeking some type of knowledge?
Oh yeah, for sure. That's one of the reasons I got into medicine, is because I love learning. Like, yeah, to an extent, I like learning what I like in a way. If you tell me like, hey, go read this English paper and give me like a report on it, I'm going to be like, I can't do that.
It's not passion.
Not me. Yeah. I have no passion for that, but for medicine and especially paintball, like I love learning every little bits and pieces about it. So
yeah. What was the first thing that caught your, like, that gave you the bug for medicine?
The first thing. So I had a lot of, like, my grandma, she was a nurse. So she's the only one in my family anywhere healthcare related. And so she was kind of like my first little pieces of it. And I always enjoyed going to the doctor. I was that kid. Like, I like going to the doctor. I like going to the dentist. So I always found like interest in that. And through school, I always liked science. So I didn't really know I wanted to be a doctor until I started undergrad. And I kind of was like, I like these subjects. Like, let me explore this path. And then I joined the American Medical Student Association. And then it just it never stopped.
Wow. I think, you hear that a lot in, I think, just life in general, is you have this idea of that you want to do something, but so many, I literally just heard a podcast about it today, that it was like 9 out of 10 people have an idea that they want to start something, but only 1 out of the 10 people actually take action to do that. And so by you knowing that, hey, you know what, I kind of want to go down this journey, like you were already steps ahead of other people that just dreamed about it.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you say that, because one of our first lectures we ever had, or meetings, I should say, for the American Medical Student Association, we're in a lecture of like 300, 400 kids. And one of the attending physicians walked in and was pointed at the front row and was like, these kids will be the only ones that make it to like becoming a physician. And that was like very surreal. It's like, wow, okay. So this is, it's hard, and a lot of people fall off really quickly, like when it gets hard. So it's all part of it.
Were you sitting in the front row?
No. I was in the back. I've always been that kind of kid. I'm in the back, very back.
But now you can prove them wrong, though.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then I want to ask one more question on it before we transition to talk over about the paintball side of it. But I think it was on that same podcast that I heard today. They were talking about like how, AI is, going to wreck a lot of jobs in the coming years. But they actually made up a really good point about the medical industry. They said the more AI advances, that actually gives doctors and people in the medical field more, you're creating more time, which means you can see more patients and essentially have more medical, experiences throughout the country and the world.
For sure.
Have you thought about that at all yet?
Yeah, it's actually already like in place.
Really?
So there's, different AI services. There's some where you can look up information, of course. One of the cool ones that we have is on our phones. When we go talk to a patient, we inform them like, hey, we're going to use AI to help us write our notes, because notes take a significant amount of time. So you go in, you press record, and it kind of drafts your basic note, and it starts to learn how you like your notes and how you format your notes.
Wow.
And so that saves significant time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild. Obviously AI, people use it for everything, but I would have never put the 2 and 2 together to save notes. My mom, she worked in the medical field, and kind of similar to you, is like when I was a kid, I remember going back to the office that she worked for, and I would just hear doctors in the background, with their recorders, speaking their notes into it, and then having to spend hours transcribing it. So I can only imagine how much time that saves now to have that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Smokes. What is it like when you're, talking to fellow residents or just people in the hospital and, introduce them to the new time, like, hey, I'm Jake, here's what I do. Does anyone know that you play professional paintball now?
So some of them do, some don't. Like my close friends that I've made in residency, they know. Some people, because I'll come in with a mark on my neck and they're like, what is that? And I don't say anything. I just let them, defer what it is. But yeah, I've talked to a couple of them about it. They just find it super interesting, and I'll start showing them videos, and then they want to go play, but we haven't played yet, but maybe one day.
Yeah. Is that when you're meeting just anybody in that introduction, is it hey, I'm Jake, I'm a resident, or is it hey, I'm Jake, I'm a professional paintball player?
Depends on the setting. I don't think I've ever said, hey, I'm Jake, I'm a professional paintball player. I think it's always, if I'm in the hospital, it's, hey, I'm Dr. Sebaugh, but if it's anywhere else, it's, I'm Jake. I don't really let people know I'm a physician if I don't have to.
Yeah, I get it. It's weird, right? Like you're, and I've talked about this on the show a bunch of times, and I think Marcelo has on his podcast too. Paintball is such a weird, niche sport where we almost don't want to tell people what we do. Just for I used to play paintball in the woods, or there's just so much stigma around it.
For sure.
But you're almost living double lives, where when you're in the hospital, you don't want to talk about that. But when you're at the paintball field, you don't want to talk about the hospital.
Yeah. And when I go to the field, it's always, what'd you see at the hospital? What'd you do today? But I don't care. It is what it is. What has playing paintball taught you that you bring into the hospital? Are there any skills that translate to the hospital? So paintball, it's adrenaline, and you have to learn to control it to get good at this game. So I think learning to control the adrenaline and kind of, making quick decisions, it translates to the hospital in a sense. Because, there are certain situations in a hospital where your adrenaline starts pumping for everybody, and it's, learning to be calm and making the correct decisions when it has to be made. But those instances aren't, it doesn't happen every day, right? Sure. But when it does happen, it's nice to have that. I know how to stay calm in, stressful situations.
Can you go deeper on that? What specifically do you do when you feel that spike of adrenaline to get your mind back to a calm state? Hey, super quick, everybody. Just want to take a quick moment and say thank you so much for everyone who has shown support and subscribed to the podcast. This thing is growing like crazy. And so if you haven't yet, take a moment, hit that subscribe button. It means a lot. All right, back to the show.
So usually when I'm feeling kind of, anxious, nervous about any situation, it's a quick deep breath in, and then I do like a double intake, like 2 breaths in before I let one out. Kind of relaxes, and I'm back to where I need to be. But I feel like I've trained myself pretty well to like never get to that state anymore.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, like it just depends on the situation, I guess, in the hospital. Yeah.
Sure. I can only imagine the crazy things that you see that you don't expect, that you can feel that little spike of like, oh, there's the heart rate that's increasing a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you wear any like type of devices like a Whoop or Apple Watch so you can see?
Yeah. I wear an Apple Watch, but my resting heart rate's like in the 50s. So
oh, wow.
It doesn't usually spike. Like if I take a nap, it'll drop to like 45, and I'm like, well, that's a little low, but that's fine.
Yeah. I've always, like in the past few years, being back on the pro paintball scene, obviously on the media side, but I've always wished that we could somehow get heart monitors on the players, just to like see throughout the matches, like where does the heart rate go, right? And who can control and kind of maintain that. I think that'd be such a fascinating statistic to have.
It would be.
Broadcast.
You know who'd be really good at that? Colt.
Oh, really?
He'd be good. Yeah, he'd be good at it for sure.
Do you say that because his would spike like crazy, or his would be
no? He'd keep his flat for sure.
Interesting. I feel like the opposite with him, because like with how like emotional and pumped up he gets, I feel like his would just go up and down the whole entire time.
Well, that would happen, but while he's playing, it'd be low. But then afterwards, if something happened, then it'd spike up.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Colt, let's jump into talking about that, because I remember back to Tampa. I've been around the Fit guys for the past few years because I'm in Austin, so I would drive up to Fit and start to build relationships with those guys. I remember seeing I'm like, man, I don't recognize his name. And then Colt goes down, and of course, like the whole, it was like the rumor mill throughout the event. Like whispers started to happen, like, hey, did you hear? And the video popped up, and then it became like, well, one, like, is Colt playing? And then the conversation shifted to like, well, he's not playing. Like, who steps into that role? And then I started to hear your name like murmur everywhere. Talk to me about that experience for you, because I'm sure going into that event, like that was probably a whirlwind for you, and then stepping right into Colt's shoes was probably crazy.
Yeah. So I had to work that Thursday. So I actually flew out probably because they were practicing when all this happened. So I was on my plane, and when I landed, I got the news from the chat, and I was like, okay, so it's like, what happened? And then they kind of told me. So I was like, well, is he playing? Is he not? And then, it was, found out it was his ACL. So he was definitely not playing, which, huge shock to our team, because he's our leader.
Yeah.
He's the guy. So, I didn't really think much of it. I didn't even play his position at practice. So I didn't think, I can play that position, but that's not where I practiced. I practiced more of the 2 and the 1 on the D side for that event. I think I played 2 or 3 points where he is, because he doesn't come off the field.
Yeah.
And then not being there for the practice was crazy. So then, before the first match, they told me to, be ready to go. And then I think I went in like the 3rd or 4th point, and, it was just shocking for sure. But then it was like, okay, like, hey, it's time to step up. It's time to play. You've played your whole life, so why not step up?
Did you have that? Because that moment of like that kind of, oh shit, like I think a lot of people, and I'm a huge NFL fan, and so obviously there's a lot of stories about like the backups, right? Where like, if last year's a prime example, when Aaron Rodgers went down on the 3rd or 4th play of the very first game of the season, it was like, well, shit, our season's done. And the backup has to step up like that. And they always say like, hey, we prepare no matter what, we're always ready. But I think some people, while they say that, there's also like, okay, well, like, what's the chance of me really stepping into a starting role this event? Did you have to battle that at all? And then like all of a sudden have to shift to go be that guy?
So going into the event, I didn't, we kind of knew who was starting, and I wasn't one of them. But I knew, if I got my chance, I'm I'm not looking back and only going forward. I've kind of always been like that. So it wasn't like a huge shock or like nerves for me, I guess, in a way, just because I knew I could play that position if need be. I feel like that for anywhere on the field. It's like I've been playing long enough. I feel like I should know how to play every position.
Yeah.
And then especially last year with leverage, I mean, I played kind of the 3 role. So I have that experience. So yeah, it just I just kind of fell into it, I guess, in a way.
Yeah. It's funny you mention that, because I think once you stepped on the field, obviously I can't hear what's going on with, Maddie in the broadcast, but like the media folks are like, man, like, hey, this new guy steps on, and Verbal's right there. And, he spoke really highly of you. He's like, hey, you got to watch him. Like he's a good dude. And so naturally, like a lot of cameras start to switch to you to see like, hey, is this guy going to like rise or stumble during these moments? And man, it was just so cool watching the progression throughout that weekend of you. I think I sent this to you at some point or posted it, but I want to bring up a picture and kind of get your thoughts on it. Cause I think this was later in Saturday, I believe. And you were fairly quiet up until that point, but then there was some point and like you threw your hands up and you said something to the guys like, okay, he's actually letting some emotion out here. And so the reason I say that is it looked like you start to feel comfortable in that spot. Like,
yeah.
Walk me through that.
Yeah, so this is actually against Impact because I had to borrow Jay Money's mask. This was Sunday against Impact, I believe.
It was Sunday. Okay. I couldn't remember if it was Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah. And I think this was like we went to overtime and just beat them. And it was like, you know what? Like, because I'm the kind of guy, like off the field, I'm fine. But on the field, I'm going to be myself. I'm going to let loose. And, I'm not going to say profanity, but yeah. I like to talk mess on the field. So, and I was just pumped for this moment. So once the event started, it was like after the first couple matches, I kind of felt more comfortable, being on the stage, being, on the pro field. It was like, all right, time to let loose. Let me be myself.
Yeah, it was really cool to see because, one of my favorite things is to take photos off the field. And I unfortunately didn't get any of you at that event, but I did notice earlier on in the tournament, you were kind of in the background a little bit. And like, as the tournament progressed, you started to step up a little bit and you were like more in the forefront and like you started to like become in the huddle. And to me, you and I had never had a conversation to that point, but I was like, man, this guy, like I can see your confidence rising throughout that. And it was just such a cool experience to watch you go from, like you said, getting off the plane to, hey, I'm a backup this weekend, to now stepping into what some would arguably say are some of the biggest shoes in paintball to step into. It was a pretty surreal experience watching it. So I'm sure for you on the flip side, it was pretty wild too.
Yeah, I didn't really realize it until kind of after the event, thinking back on it. Like, because to me, I'm there to win. That's the only reason I'm there. And so we won, which was crazy. I still think back, I'm like, man, played the first event and won. It was just like, at the time, didn't think much of it. But now it's like, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. But I just want to keep winning.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Because I think, I've talked to a lot of pros and a lot of people like shrug it off. Like, well, yeah, we won, but like, the eye's on this prize now. And like, they just completely go past that moment. So I really appreciate you saying, holy shit, like, no, this was actually like a really special moment. And it sounds like you're now using that for momentum, of course, to carry on for the rest of the year. What did you learn about that weekend from yourself or about yourself?
Oh, if I put my mind to anything, like I'll get it done. And it just, that weekend just built more confidence in myself, like on and off the field. Yeah. It was like, all right, like I can do this. Like this isn't, going into it. It's like, all right, I've never played a pro event. This is my first time. Like these are these guys have been playing for 20 years. Like I shouldn't have a chance. But then you start realizing it's like, no, you put in the work. You've done all the hard stuff. So it's like time to go prove it. So, and I think most of the sport's very mental. So,
yeah. And do you notice, or have you noticed, like, as you've gone through the ranks, that it's been more of a focus on mental and less skill? Because I've heard that from a lot of folks.
Yeah, to an extent, you have to have your fundamentals down, and those will always help you in like certain situations. But yeah, a lot of it's the winning mindset and knowing how to win. You can be super skilled, but if you've never won before, why are you going to win at the best level, at the top level? So it's like winning at each division is super important. Like winning at D4 is hard because everyone's D4 for a reason.
Yeah.
Winning at D3 just as hard. So it's, I think learning how to win is super important in this game.
What's been the hardest jump for you? Because I think I've heard a lot of people say D4 to D3 is super hard. And then I hear a lot of people say jumping to semi-pro is insane. And then I hear some folks saying going from semi-pro to pro is a lot smaller than what you would think.
I agree with that to an extent for sure. I think jumping too early is the problem. And then a lot of people, they don't like practicing harder teams. And so they don't like putting in the work. So it's like, if you're a D4 team and you're afraid to play the D2 team at the local field, and you only want to play against the D5 kids, like, yeah, you're not gonna progress every weekend. You're just, if anything, you're going down. So it's, knowing, hey, we're gonna go practice this team. We might win 1 point today, but okay, did we do better? Did we do worse? What can we improve on? So it's like, if you're doing that the whole time, the jump shouldn't be crazy. And if you're winning and learning how to win the whole time, the jumps, it should make sense. You shouldn't be going from D4 to D2 and thinking, oh, we're going to win this, right? And there's a lot of teams that do it, but
yeah. That's been a theme on this podcast the past few weeks. Like Archie talked about going into practice like with a certain mindset. Scott Stewart, your teammate, talked about it last week. When you are showing up to the field on a Saturday or Sunday, what's your mindset going into that day of paintball?
Yeah, so I always like driving to the field. I'm always like, okay, this is what I'm going to focus on, like a personal thing. Like, hey, I need to do this better. I need to do that better. And then usually as a team, we're focused on improving at certain aspects of the game because there's, in the Paintball Fit camp, you're never perfect and you never will be perfect because if you say you're perfect, then you're not going to continue to grow. So every practice we're trying to improve, even if it's just a little tweak, little communication error here, like always just trying to improve. No matter if we even have a perfect point, we 5 alive, it's like, no, something could have changed. So we're always just critiquing and trying to progress and bring everybody up.
Has that always been your mindset? Because I'll be completely transparent is when I hear like sometimes Colt or Scott, you guys will dominate a point or dominate a match, they're coming off like, hey, we're not happy yet. We're not satisfied yet. I'm like, holy shit, you just like smoke these guys. Like, what do you mean you're not satisfied? So has that always been the same for you?
No, I mean, I'll be honest with that. Definitely not. Yeah, I mean that everybody's different, right? Because I think, early in my playing career, of course, I wanted to go pro. Like that was like my original goal was to go pro really early. And then, I started to focus on school, kept playing. So then I just played with my friends. And of course, I was always the one that was a little bit more pushing everyone to be better, but it wasn't all the time. It definitely not to the extent of them, but it's always been there where it's like, okay, like we could have done better here. But if you're not around the same like-minded individuals and you're trying to push everybody like that, it's not a good recipe. And so coming to Fit, it's been like, hey, we didn't do well here. And it's like, yeah, I agree. Like, let's do better. Let's do it this next point. Let's practice an extra point so we can try it again. So it's been good.
Yeah, I've also kind of come full circle with that too, where I've started to associate like Paintball Fit with almost the like the New England Patriots, like kind of the older mentality, that mindset of like, hey, just do your job. And if you have, all 5 or 10 guys having that same conversation, like that really creates an environment where you can be vulnerable and you can say like, hey, you messed up here. And like, and also to not take it personal. Like, yeah, I messed up. Let's go fix it. I think that is a huge area of opportunity for lower divisions. I don't know what the solve for that is, but I think there's definitely opportunity where we can like spend some mental energy on divisional teams. Maybe it's going through practices of like, hey, let's have these conversations. Let's actually practice having these like call out conversations. because you see it all the time in the lower divisions where like they come off the field like, hey, you messed up here, and then the person takes it personal, and then it turns into an argument, and you just don't see a lot of that in the fit camp.
Yeah, you got to leave your ego at the door, and if you think you're perfect, then you're not. It's just, you're not perfect in any regard, right? You can always improve in just little ways, and that'll always keep you learning and growing. So yeah, it's definitely part of the motto.
Has there been anyone on the roster that you've gravitated towards? Because I always think to new people that come into a program, whether it's a paintball team or even like a profession, maybe in the hospital, there's usually one or two people that you kind of like gravitate towards, and whether it's you share same energy or same mindset. Has there been anybody on the team?
I mean, we're all very like-minded. I definitely say like Scott and Cyrus, we just have like an ongoing joke. But no, I feel like everyone's like super connected. Like we're all like, we go to lunch every practice. Like we go hang out at the baseball game. Like, I don't know. Like every single person, like I'll share Instagram memes with Jacob Johnson, and like it's everyone's pretty connected for the most part.
That's I love that, because I was actually talking with somebody the other day about you guys, about fit, and I obviously the gray hair shows. I've been a paintball fan for a long time, and I was, when Dynasty first came around, when they were all kids, like they all had the blonde hair and they were just winning everything under the sun. It was like, holy shit, this is such a special group of individuals. Like to have a group of best friends that are playing together, winning at the pro level. Obviously they are still going on a tear, but I think what you guys have going right now, like it's so special. It's so unique to have this group of people that are so like-minded, that are a lot of blue collar, just hardcore workers. Most of the guys work, either for something within the fit program. You just don't see that a lot anymore.
Yeah, like we're all like 20 minutes away from each other. Like we all stay really close. I mean, we all back in July went to Colt's wedding. So it's like, yeah, we're a really tight knit group for sure.
Like, has that set in for you of like, you guys could potentially be the next, legacy of paintball, or like the next face of the sport on the tournament side at least?
Colt lets us know all the time.
Yeah. What does he say?
We're the next coming of paintball. So
what is that? What do you go through when you hear that?
I just go, yeah, we've put in the work. Like this, why not?
Yeah. I love that. Like the whole, why not us?
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk to me about what it's like been working alongside with Colt. Because I always translate it back to the NFL, right? Like you always have a starter and a backup, just like with any sport. And sometimes when the starter goes down, there's a lot of there's sometimes hatred to the person stepping in, and like a lot of self-doubt. But from my perspective, it seems like Colt just instantly like went to, hey, like we're doing this together, like we're all winning this together. So what was it like getting advice from him, stepping into his shoes?
Oh yeah, it was great. I get advice from him all the time. I mean, I think you can learn from anybody, right? Like I don't care what level of the game you're at. There's different perspectives on things. So, but learning, like getting advice from Colt, he's one of the best at the position, if not the best. So it's like, why would I not listen to it? I mean, I take advice from every single person on the team, because they're all just killers. Every single one of them, so.
Yeah, it's scary. Like Paintball Fit's the point now where whoever they send out, it's like, oh yeah, good luck.
Oh no, it's really nice. You get on the box and you look to your left and your right, and you're like, yeah, I feel bad for the other guys.
Yeah,
so.
I know some of the, and I won't name names or teams, but I know some of the scouts for other teams in the league, and they always say, yeah, Paintball Fit's like one of the top 2 or 3 teams it's that wild card. They're just always like, I don't want to say scared, but it's like, we just don't know what to expect. And there's not a lot of holes in the lineup. And that's where a lot of dangerous things can happen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I want to bring up another picture. I wish I captured this in Tampa, but I didn't. But this is, I think for a lot of pro players, you hear it a lot of it being such a special moment, right? Where it's whether, hey, you made the first Sunday, that's a special moment. But this is a moment that I think a lot of people dream about, but you don't actually really feel it until you're there. And it's so fun being in my spot because I literally can watch just the whole entire team, and every individual person goes through some type of different emotion during this. So I want to bring this up. And for those that are not watching on YouTube and just listening, it's a picture of Chavi, Trent, Jake, and Scott in Atlantic City, downpouring rain. The national anthem is playing. And this is such a special moment for every individual player. What went through your mind, one at this one, but also back to Tampa when you were on the field for the first time for the national anthem?
No, that was surreal. Like, you don't think about how important moments are like this. The Tampa one, for sure, a little bit more surreal because it's the first time. This one, my eyes were closed because I was just getting pelted in the face with water. But still, it's an awesome feeling for sure. It's not even something you can really describe.
Yeah, it's so cool to see, people who are typically, I'll say masculine might be the right word. They just break down. They just break down and they just bawl in tears. And it's like, wow, I don't think I would have expected you to be that type of person. So it's just so cool to see people go through different moments there. I think last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, when Team USA was out for their finals, I think somebody had the camera on Harrison Fry and he was literally singing and like shouting the national anthem, So it's just so cool to see different people's experiences with it. Talk to me about Atlantic City, because obviously you won Tampa, right? And you're like, hey, I just won an event, and then now to go to Atlantic City and then make that really deep run. What went through your process there?
Yeah, so it's funny because after Tampa, I made the joke. I was like, oh, I'm just going to retire. Like, I won one, I retired, I'm done. Like, I'm 100% win rate. But no, going to Atlantic City, it was, we never stopped grinding, never stopped practicing. And Atlantic City came, played our first match against Infamous. It went well. I can't remember the score exactly. It might have been 5-0 or 6-0. And then we played, who was it? X Factor. And we lose a game by just not communicating and working well as a team. Then we play NRG. Game kind of goes back and forth, but we get the win. And then we play Diesel, another Texas team. So it was like a lot of like rivalries kind of built up. Yeah. And we lose that game not communicating and, working as a team. So we go into, and we barely squeak in, thanks to Houston Heat losing the dynasty. Yeah. And we have like a, really tough team meeting and just, calling people out, not in a bad way, but just being like, hey, like, you got to step up, you got to do this. And then it all just kind of clicked the first 3 matches on Sunday. We Mercy Diesel, Mercy X Factor. We're playing the Russians. We're up 4-0. I think the final score is 4-2. We could have made it 5-2, but, we're gentlemen.
Wow. Then shots fired.
Have to. And then going into the Tauntauns game, it was like everything we were doing in the prelims kind of came back. Like we weren't communicating as well. We weren't working together because we could have closed that game twice, before overtime and then in overtime. I had a move to break it open and just didn't do it. Like, don't know if nerves got to me or just thinking, oh, my teammates are so good, they're going to do it, Yeah. But we all just kind of stumbled on our feet a little bit. And then, we had to call on Scott Stewart to go win the one-on-one, but we knew how that was going to end before it started. So,
yeah. And if you haven't listened to it, like go listen to his episode from last week, because we talked about that moment of just like what goes through his mindset there. You mentioned something that I've thought about a lot because I hear it from other pro teams like, hey, we had a really hard meeting last night, or like our coach was really hard on us, or like just something similar to that. And I've always been curious, how do you not put more pressure on yourself when that happens? Right. Because I think that's where a lot of teams crumbles, like, oh man, well now we have to perform, like now I have to go out and do this. How do you still keep that calm level and still doing your job?
Yeah, I mean, it's just all self-accountability. Like if you have a high ego and you can't take the criticism, then, that's what's going to happen. But everybody on our team, you know, like when we get told like, hey, you should be doing this, like, why didn't you do this? Like, what were you thinking? And, you know, that we just build on it. And like, we'll go back and watch each point and be like, hey, like, why didn't we do this? Why'd you do this? And it's like, okay. So then when that happens again the next day, it's like, I know I have to do this. So but it's all self-accountability in that regard.
Do you have, because it sounds like this translates insanely well to the hospital. Do you have any tips or anything that you've done personally that have helped you overcome that ego and like have helped you with your self-accountability that you can recommend to other people?
That's a good question. I'm giving up a lot of the secret sauce.
That makes everybody around you better, which makes you better.
Yeah, of course. No, I agree with that concept though, by the way. But you know, if you have a big ego and someone keeps telling, if you keep getting told the same things over and over and over again, and you're not improving, you just have to take a step back and being like, okay, are they the issue or am I the issue? And it's usually you're the issue. If something keeps happening, that's the exact same thing. Like, you're probably the problem. And if not, like, talk about it. But it's okay to have those conversations about like, okay, like, why? But you have to be okay with being wrong and being incorrect. It happens all the time. Like, no one's perfect. And even in the hospital, it's like, you know, we round with our attendings who are like senior doctors.
Sure.
And, you know, they ask us our assessment and plan for the patient. So we have to give it to them. And sometimes they're just like, no, that's completely wrong. And you have to be okay with that. But, you know, the good residents will go back and read up on it and learn why, not just accept that as a fact. So it's just, you have to be okay with being wrong.
Thank you for sharing it and not just shying away on the question.
Of course.
That's almost, I had Archie Montemayor on a few weeks ago, and he said that, I would say pretty close to verbatim, is you've got to have that conversation with yourself first. And I think he even said like that's the most important conversation you'll ever have, is the one with yourself, if you want to become like a professional paintball player. And I think that's what separates, you know, the good players in the league from the great players, is they're able to have that conversation. And it's not just a checkbox, right? Where it's not like, hey, I had this conversation, cool, I'm a pro now. It's something I think you have to have over and over and over again.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. If you stop having that conversation, then you're become stagnant.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're not trying to improve every time you play, well, you just went and played for fun. You know, we're at the level where I'm trying to be better every practice. I don't care if it's 1%, 10%, it don't matter. Just improve at something, or else you just, you know, went out on a weekend and just shot paint with your friends, right? You could have still had a good time, but we're at the point where we want to win every event, every point, you know, every situation. So
like, I do want to push you on that too. And I did the same thing for Scott last week. And he dropped some gold, so no pressure. I hear a lot of divisional players say that too, like, hey, I'm going to practice, like, you know, we want to win, we want to grind, we want to get better. But then I don't hear anything else from that. It's like, I just heard you say, you know, hey, when we go to the field, like, I want to get better. What specifically are you, like, give me an example of when you go to Fit this weekend for the, you know, the layout drop, or when this comes out, you know, this will be NXL, the actual tournament event. What goes through your mind of like, I want to get better at fill in the blank this weekend, and here's how I'm going to do that? Like, what's that mindset?
Yeah. So, I've been working on it. I feel like every practice is the biggest thing for us is communication and teamwork. And we're at the point where it's like yelling calls and codes isn't really enough anymore. It's okay, how do we set up this situation to win? How do we do that? How do you do that during the point when things are chaotic? You know, because Ohio was a great example of you had to use your teammates to win points, or else you were just relying on gunfights to win.
Yeah.
And so I've been focusing on that a lot going into, you know, Dallas, is how do I use my teammates and how do we communicate more than just codes to win points? So that's one thing I've been focusing on a lot, you know, since really Atlantic City, you know, just focusing on it every single time. And then of course there's like little things here and there where it's like, okay, I can play the center more aggressive, or I can, you know, get more creative on the snake side, stuff like that. But that's like, I think the biggest thing I'm focusing on is, that deeper communication.
I love that. I think that's really helpful for players. And I've got a lot of divisional guys that reach out and say like, hey, you had this guest on, it really helped translate here. So I think by you sharing that specific piece, I think a lot of people are going to resonate with that. And I would love to ask, this would be a really cool question because so we're obviously recording a day before the layout drops, right? And so I can't ask you like, hey, what do you think about the layout? But with it dropping tomorrow, and then with this episode coming up publicly the week of the event in Dallas, what goes through your mindset when you first see the layout drop? Like, how do you start to learn that? One, how do you start to learn it when you first see it? But then two, like when you're actually out the field with the guys, what's some of the first things that you do?
So like right when I see a layout, I'm usually pretty quick at determining like the speed of it. And just by, you can usually tell like, all right, if a lot of bunkers, the wide bunkers can get shot off the break and there's not a lot of big ones in the back, it's going to speed up. If everything's makeable off the break, it's going to slow down. So that's usually the first thing is I figure out like how fast I think it's going to play. And then after that, it's like, okay, what are the key bunkers going to be? Like, where are the bunkers? The most of them, it's usually 2 or 3 bunkers that, okay, these are super valuable and super important. And sometimes you don't learn that until you actually play. But you can usually get a pretty good idea just by seeing it. So those are the 2 first things that go through my head. And then after that, it's like you just got to be there in person to kind of really deep dive into it.
And the reason why I want to ask you this specific question is I wonder if that's what you also go through in the hospital too, where like if you're about to step into, you have a case that you're taking, or you have an illness that you're treating. I would imagine you have a vision of how it's going to go, and then when you walk in the room, is it something? Do you go through a similar mindset with that?
Yeah, it's very similar. So usually, the ED physicians will call us and they'll be like, "Hey, I got this patient for you," and they'll just be like, "Oh, they're here for chest pain." And so you're like, okay. And, I'll pull up their chart, kind of go through quick labs, see if there's any old notes, stuff like that, and kind of get a game plan of, okay, this is what I think it is. Yeah. And usually I'd say like 90-95% accurate. There's always wild curveballs. And so you kind of already have your game plan of this is what I think before I ever step into the room. And then once I go in there, I already have like questions lined up for that patient. It's because I know what I, already think it is. So it's like I have, really directed and guided questions. And then of course I let them explain everything. But then after that, it's like, let's get down to exactly what I need to know. But yeah, it's very, very similar to what you said. I already have my game plan for the most part. We'll see if things change, and they can. It has many times, but yeah, you have to have a game plan going into it for sure.
Yeah, it's so funny because like I could go back and edit this and not tell anybody that you work in like the medical field, and the skills that you're saying that you're talking about for the paintball field and for working in the medical field, they translate back and forth so well to each other. What have you noticed? Like, speaking of those skills, what are some skills that you've learned being in the hospital, maybe in some like really high tense situations that obviously playing paintball, like your anxiety, your adrenaline is just skyrocketing. What have you learned to keep yourself calm in those really tense, stressful situations?
Like in the hospital?
No, like what has the hospital taught you about paintball that like you're bringing from the hospital onto the field?
So paintball, they're different stressors, right?
Yeah.
One's can be life and death. One is, trying to win a championship, right? But I will say the biggest things I've learned from the hospital is communication is key. You can't, if you see something, say something. Don't be afraid to be wrong. And then teamwork, like those are the 2 big things. And if you know that, the stressful situations in the hospital, like if you have those kind of like understand, the stressful situations kind of diminish in a way in the hospital setting. And so it's like, take that to the paintball field and you're playing paintball and you have good teamwork and communication. It's, you're not very stressed. If you know somebody's doing their job and you know this zone's covered and you know exactly where the bodies are, the game gets easier. So I think communication, teamwork, those are like the two key things I take away from the hospital.
And see, like you could reverse that and say the same thing for the flip, and it's probably super important.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. Jake, I've got 2 more questions for you. What have you learned about yourself personally this year? Stepping on the pro field, being in some big moments, of course, still going through your residency. Like you're going through just such an integral part of your life right now. It's like, what have you learned about yourself personally?
I've learned that I have more time than I think. Just because I work, 70 or 80 hours a week doesn't mean I don't have time for paintball, my wife, dogs, family. I've even taken up running recently. So it's like,
wow.
you can find time for things if you truly want to do it. And like this season's really taught me that because, on Paintball Fit, we play a lot of paintball, more than most people probably think and or know. And then, of course, working in the hospital, most of my weeks probably average 70, 80 hours. So it's like balancing family, friends, and then just stuff I enjoy doing. I've learned that you have a lot more time than you think, but it's just, are you using it correctly? And did you really want to do that? If that makes sense.
It totally does. I want to push you there because I think there's some advice that I think people can take away, because I hear a lot of people will come to me like, hey, I love what you're doing with the podcast or photos, but I just don't have a lot of time. And so you're working 80 hours a week. You're playing on a professional team that is arguably playing the most paintball out of anybody. So like, what's the how there? Like, how did you figure out that you had time left?
Yeah. It was trial and error for sure at first. Starting, because before this, I was in residency, but I was on leverage. So it was, they're in the Northeast. So didn't really get to practice as much with them. So, starting once I got on the fit and was practicing with them, it was like, okay, like, how do I incorporate this time? How do I have these extra hours? And it's like, okay, like you got to tweak it a little bit. You got to play with it, but you'll figure out ways if you truly want to do it and your passion's there. But if you're, if you want to be a bodybuilder and you're sitting on, at your desk playing video games all day and it didn't work out today, then did you really want to do it? So it's all about passion and like determination to actually get it done. And you'll learn with that you have way more time in your day than you ever thought.
Have you ever been a visual person with that, or like where you actually mapped out your schedule to like see like, holy shit, I actually have hours here? Have you ever done that?
Yeah, I'm usually pretty good about my schedule. It changes on a day-to-day basis for sure. But I usually know, like, no matter what, even if I have the day off, I'm usually up by 5:30, 5 a.m. And I start my day, even if I didn't need to be up that early. It's like, I'm just on a schedule where it's like, I need to keep it like that. And so, yeah, I kind of try to map out my day for the most part. But it always changes. I have a to-do list next to me that has a million things on it that still aren't done. But I try to knock off every day that I have the time to do it. But yeah, it's for sure. I definitely visualize kind of my day, like how my day is going to run, each morning.
Are you, and I'm asking a few follow-ups, but are you now incorporating running at the start of your day or at the end of your day?
So I usually try to wake up. So now I'm waking up a little bit earlier to try to, I still like to wake up and enjoy my coffee.
Yeah.
My first one, I guess. And then, I stretch and then I have like a little trail around my house. So I'll run that once or twice and then come back, shower, get in my truck and go to work. But yeah, no, I've enjoyed it. It's definitely like another type of piece once you kind of get it down. At first it really sucked, but now I enjoy it. It's like, I'm looking forward to it. Like I didn't get to run this morning because of my exam. So it's like, I feel like I'm missing something today.
Itching for tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What's your, I promise one more question after this. What's your go-to audio of choice when you're running? And it's okay if it's not the Shellda Podcast.
It's usually music, or I won't wear headphones at all. And I'll just, I usually run in the morning.
Yeah.
So if it's music, country, rap, you name it, metal, just depends on what the mood is. Sometimes I'll listen to like medicine podcasts, like because they'll kind of like teach you things like new guidelines. If not, I'll just listen to the world while I run, like
which is also
whatever's around me,
which is great too. I've heard that some people prefer not having headphones in, just taking in their surroundings.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've got a last question and then a question from the previous guest. This one's might be a little bit of a harder question for you. Have you thought about, I think I've seen online a lot, like Colt's coming back, he's getting healthier. Have you thought about what that'll be like when Colt's back and is probably back into that starting role, like what that means for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about it for sure. To me, it's, I have my role, I have my position, and, I just got to keep growing. If I'm not starting, not playing, whatever, it's okay. It's for a reason. So yeah. How do I get better? How do I improve? Like what do I have to do next? So, but I'm excited for him to come back. Like, I think some people think that's probably not the case. No, I'm pumped for him to come back. Because I've only ever practiced with him. I've never played an event with him. He's always just been just on the sidelines for me. So it's like, I'm excited because, we're just going to get that much better. So
that's what I think. I've heard both sides of the conversation. And when I've heard the opposite, I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, Casey's going to find a way to get Jake on that field somehow. So I think you'll be an integral piece of it for sure, regardless of what that looks like, because you've clearly showed, how important your role is specifically this year. So it's been cool to watch.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, Jake, this has been awesome. I've got a tradition that I've ended actually before I do that. I know I said like last question.
You're good.
I promise. Because I just looked down and I saw this. I was like, I gotta give a shout out, and I want you to talk about it too. When you and I had chatted, I think it was in Cincinnati about coming on. You mentioned the VCK guys, and they would kill me if I didn't give them a shout out. So, like, talk to me about that for a little bit of what VCK meant to you, because I've seen the brand around and I didn't know until recently, but they actually sent me like one of their patches and a bunch of stickers and whatnot. So like, I proudly wear it now that I know it. But tell me what those guys mean to you.
Yeah. So growing up in Houston, John and Fuzzy were arguably the best in the Houston area, the rest of the VCK guys as well. And I played on a team called Brutality, which was kind of almost like a sister team. Like, we were always around them. And John, I give a lot of props to John Jackson. He is such a great teacher of the game, and he knows the game so well. He'd always take time out of his day to like help progress people that wanted to learn and was like okay with the criticism.
Yeah.
And so, hearing the advice from him, watching Fuzzy, because Fuzzy at the time was just killing it. Cam McCarty, Devin Stewart, Nico Hyde, you name it. They're all playing pro, right? Killing it. TJ Danner was on VCK too. So it's like, looked up to all those guys for years. So eventually, once the semi-pro team had like tryouts, I went to it because my team kind of fell apart or whatnot and made the team. It was crazy. I was super pumped to have the VCK on my jersey. I had a sticker just like that on the back of my truck. Like, it was awesome. I learned so much for those guys. I give a lot of props to John for sure. And I still have a picture of me and Fuzzy. I won a one-on-one tournament that John hosted at my local field, and I won it. And it's a picture of young Fuzzy and even younger me holding like an Ironman jersey that I won.
Oh,
and still have it framed. I think it's in the other room, but those guys, they mean the world to me, and I give them all the props I can.
Yeah, it's so cool seeing like the stickers, and I know there's a 10-man team that'll be in Dallas. Like, it's just so cool seeing the jersey, still around,
which is crazy.
Ooh,
I'm just kidding.
I've got some guys in my Discord, so I'll let them know that you're gonna get some shade.
No, it's all good.
Yeah. So now I promise. Last question. Promise time. I've done a really cool thing where I've tied in all of my guests with like a really unique way, and where I'll ask a question where you get to ask a question for next week's guest without knowing who it's going to be. And I've worked really hard to try to get some fit guys on leading into Dallas. So it worked out beautifully where I had Scott Stewart on last week. You're on this week. I don't know who next week is yet, but there's potential that could be somebody else from Paintball Fit. So it'll be really cool to have like a whole, Dallas theme with the event. But your question from your teammate, Scott Stewart, is what's the hardest thing that you've ever done that you didn't succeed at first, but then you eventually found a way to get some success with that? What was it and how?
Okay. So the hardest thing I've ever done that I didn't succeed at.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think while you're thinking about it, I think where his mindset with that was, he talked a lot about his days on AC Dallas that were like super challenging for him. Mm-hmm. And obviously he went through a lot with that. So I think that's where his mindset was with that question.
Gotcha. So you want paintball related or non-paintball related? How about that?
Up to you, man. It's your question. You get to go wherever you want to go with it.
I gotcha. So I think outside of paintball, some people might know it. There's an entrance exam into med school. It's called the MCAT. Has nothing to really do with medicine, but it's, it deters a lot of people from applying. It's a very hard test. And the first time I took it, I was super confident. I studied a little bit, but definitely not enough. Did not do well on it as I wanted to, because like certain scores will get you in, and then other scores are just, you have no shot. And my first score was poor. Like I was like, what just happened? I was super upset about it. Was like questioning, like, okay, is this even for me? Didn't know what to do. I had my girlfriend, who's now my wife. She was there, and my family was there, but they kind of was like, you can still do this. You have the capability of doing it. It's up to you if you really want to do it. So like their support, restudied for it, studied for a long time for it. I was like, oh, I'm not letting this exam, break me. Came back, crushed it, got into med school. And that was, so I eventually succeeded, I guess. But, part of it was the failure first. Yeah. And then that made me grow. So I hope that kind of answers that in that regard.
100%. And answered it in a very beautiful way, because I think a lot of people are going to relate to that, because there's just so many exams out there for different, whether it's like SATs or things that get into like a college or get into a profession that people are going to fail for the first time. Or even if there's somebody listening that's going for their driver's license test, right? Like when you don't pass that, there's just so much self-doubt that comes in. So I think to hear that you went through that and were able to come out on the other side is going to be some type of motivation for somebody listening for sure.
Cool.
So yeah, great answer. All right, pressure's off. You get to ask the question for next week's guest without knowing who it is, and it can be you can take it anywhere you want to go.
Okay, I got a good one, because I like to see if people have the paintball knowledge or see how long they've been watching paintball. What was the first memorable paintball video you ever watched, or the first time you ever saw paintball online?
Oh yeah, good question. I love that, because I love this question for like when I have some of the younger guys at the field and I'll bring up a video where they're like, what? And I'm like, what do you mean this is like such an iconic moment in paintball? How
you bring up Trauma Head Sports and no one knows what that is. And it's like, well, I used to watch that. So.
Yeah. Go home right now and go watch that.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, Jake, this has been such an honor to have you on. And I think I can say it for everybody, thank you for what you do off the field. Being in the medical field I just can't imagine. I can't fathom it. And so to do what you're doing and you're pursuing for a career, thank you for giving back to the community. And selfishly, I'm so excited to see what you do for the rest of the year on the field. It's going to be fun to capture some more memories for you.
Oh yeah, it's coming. We got 2 more events or 4 more events if they do the 3v3 stuff. So 4 more wins. That's what's coming. But I appreciate it.
Yeah, I love that. Well, hey, good luck in Dallas. No pressure in your backyard, but I think you got a lot of people. When Fit's on the field, it's going to be pretty loud, I feel like.
It might be.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, to everyone else, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Shellda Podcast, and we'll catch you next time. See ya.